Okay, well, back to Chariots of Fire. This is the Battle of Megiddo, and what we have here, I'm going to play, there's a couple of different flavors for this one, in part because the historical situation. There's actually a significant amount of information for the time period, but it's an open question whether or not the Kadashite alliance had managed to position itself to defend. I'm playing with the thought that they didn't get fully into defensive position at Megiddo. What you've got is really, this is the first chariot battle, first of all, that we're doing. And we've got some very, very heavy, or chariot-heavy armies here, with this whole line being chariots, and then the front line in every force being chariots as well. The Egyptians have brought a little bit of infantry support for the Pharaoh's division, and then back here there's a whole infantry division behind this chariot division. The big difference is between the two scenarios is this one gives you fixed setup, which I always kind of like. So, even if it's got nothing, nothing but guesswork, it makes my life a little easier to set the counters up without having to think. But also, it has all of the Kadashite forces facing as if they've just marched onto the field, which means if the Egyptians get their initiatives well, they'll be hitting a line that's not really prepared to receive them. And also you can see there's kind of a flank here exposed. These units you would say, okay, well, they've got an opportunity too, except they're going to be in reserve and they can't operate until they spend a momentum in making it a check against their effectiveness. Now, the rules on them are not very good, in the sense that it doesn't clarify what happens, or doesn't specify what happens if the Kadashites attack them first. I think they should be released in that case. There's no, again, it's not specified in the rules, but it's also not specified that they shouldn't. We've got some terrain. Okay. A strict reading of the rules would indicate they'd just stand there and be unable to be activated if attacked, which I think is unbelievable, given that they've marched into an attack position against the city. All right, let's look at the movement and combat effects here. For the most part, we've got more terrain than usual. First of all, we've got this little these hillish type features, which I thought, oh God, for a chariot battle, that's going to be horrible. Turns out it's not. They're just mild slopes, so they cost 1 extra movement point for anything to climb. And in effect, but not a huge one. They may also have an effect over on the combat. I wouldn't be shocked. I seem to remember that. Yeah. Higher terrain gives you a bonus to defend. Okay. We also have these impassable slopes up here around the city, and we have steep slopes here which provide a further penalty, and there's no way the chariots can get over that, but that's not really part of the battle. And I don't see much else anywhere. So, oh, we've got this stream, which is also minimal effect on movement and probably a slight advantage in combat. I got a minor river gives a shift, but a stream does not. I don't know. Seems to me it should have some combat effect if it has a movement effect, but again, this is probably not going to be a major factor in the battle. Alright, I skimmed up on the chariot rules and noticed I made a mistake with the battle wagons. They should have been treated as chariots for the flip over rules. I'm going to try to remember to use those. They're hard to remember, just because you have to pre-allocate all your movement points for them, and that's just a tough thing to decide. And then I got to worry about, you know, pass-throughs, etc. The Egyptians have some runner infantry associated. Now, I've looked at this stuff, and I'm not sure how much advantage it really gives. If you look at it, it gives attacker superiority versus the light infantry and the barbarian infantry. You don't want to hit the shock infantry with it. And you don't really want to hit other chariots with it. Chariots 2 and 3, well, I hit them with a 5. Chariots with runners, I hit as even, but that's not what I've got. So it's actually, they're actually a decrease to the shock ability if I try to attack other chariot units shock on shock with them, sort of, except they allow it, which normal chariots only allow you to hit runners or light infantry alone in shock. And, well, they're good against the lights, but, or at least moderately good. But, yeah, you're going to mainly be seeing, I think, the pass-through attacks or the hit and run or various forms of missile fire from the chariots in this system. I forgot to touch on the route points here. The Egyptians have 80 route points they have to lose. The Kadashite Alliance has 60. But there's a little switch to that, which is if the Egyptians manage to lose 45 route points of chariots, and it's kind of interesting how that's actually worded. What they specify here, let's see, somewhere. Here we go. I get this simple version kind of embedded in it. What they specify here is if the Egyptian player has either lost more than 45 route points in eliminated or routed chariot units, I'm not quite sure how to read that, then the Syrian coalition gets the win. So, the way that's stated, it almost sounds like, okay, if I got 45 eliminated, now, I don't know what eliminated and fleeing, I mean, those are usually what you count the route points for. But what about routed units that are still on the board? I just don't know how to do this. I'm going to just say, if there's 45 that have been taken off the board, I'm going to count that. I think that's significant enough. But I'll tell you what, if there's 45 routed ones on the board at once, I'll also call it a battle for the Kadashites, because I don't think that's going to happen. Well, the Kadashites got their first initiative, and well, they won the initiative, and they chose to move into more of a defensive position, hoping to maybe bring these wings up and strike from the flank and try to defend. Now, this doesn't feel very chariot-like to set up a line of them on a hilltop and try to shoot the enemy as he comes at them, but there is a slight advantage, at least to melee combat, in being positioned like this. There aren't a lot of infantry over here. I really don't trust chariots, to tell you the truth, and I think maybe their best use is defensively as a firing platform up on that hill. So that's going to be my goal here. One thing I didn't note was these guys who, I don't know when they move or fire for that matter, but they count as forces. They can't leave the city, and they can fire their bows to defend it, and they've got some defensive bonuses from the city walls. Here's one thing though, the standards. The Pharaoh has his own standard, but the Kadashites do not. They use Megiddo as their standard essentially. But unlike the last battle we did, Sekhmem, they can't come back out. So if they rout, they go in here and they're safe and they're not off the board. They're not destroyed for the route point value, but they're out of play essentially. And that's kind of an intriguing idea here. They're not going to come back. There's no way to recover them. So I don't know. That kind of changes things. It's similar to the other battle. It's possible your entire force could rout into the city safely, and hey, you don't lose then or something. I don't know what to do in that case. All right, well, with something that looks kind of like a circle, I don't know. The answer to me seems to be to run through it. I got a triggered Egyptian activity, and I'm gonna try chariot run-throughs, just going through the entire front of the of the enemy force. We'll see what that works like. To the best I can, I'm going to try to avoid the chariot turnover table because I'm going to be going at a fast speed here. 7 through 9 on turnovers. That's likely to do as many hits to me as whatever I'm charging through. Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, as I'm coming, mark how many movement points I've taken. There's a reaction fire attempt there. Alright, well, let's see what that does to me. It's going to be over on these charts. And I really should put this table back together because I can't get the damn leg off. So far, all 3 of the tables that I have set up in here, one leg has gotten stuck due to my leaning on it or whatever, and I can't remove them. And it's really kind of, I mean, I can unscrew it and replace the leg, but it's really become kind of a pain in the ass. Anyway, let's go to here. We're going to be firing. All right. What are we firing here? We're firing composite bows, finally. At Chariot 2, we get a +1. That's bad. It's at range 1, and I think that's about all we have on it. So 4 means we do a hit to this thing. No idea how this kind of battle is going to work out. It's got to be kind of weird. And now we go up. Now we were at 5. This brings us to 6, 7. And now we get to shoot our pass-through fire, which will be the same at a +1, but we're at a closer range. We get a 4. We do a hit. Okay, so that had us at 7. There's nothing he can really do about it. 8, 9, we're just going to keep running. And I'll do this with the rest of the line. Just blow through them. Well, there's a somewhat predictable effect of that. I tried to avoid getting that pre-fire, you know, the reaction fire as I enter in. So 2 of them swung through this one, and that worked fine. But one of them went into the pinnacle here. And that, great. Except I keep going through, and I hit back here, and I take shots from these guys as I hit. That's none too good, and I don't want to keep moving in this direction. I could have one more movement point, because I'll take another shot at me. So that's kind of an unpleasant situation. I kind of want to, guess, focus on the edges of the line there. Alright, well that didn't do much at all. Giving up on this, I swept another one through, but he had to go through the double fire. Not pleasant for him. Then somebody moving up here, and he had to make a couple of turns, and he ended up losing chariots in each case. So again, taking more damage, making the attack is painful with these things. Well, I'm definitely just blundering around with this system as it stands, but what do we have is, after that initial attack, bringing these other wings in, the infantry, thinking, wow, maybe infantry will be better against the chariots, but I'm not sure it really will. When I start looking at, the chariots seem to be fairly immune to it. For one thing, they can withdraw and they have a high tactical quality, so they probably won't take losses doing that. But also they can do that hit and run type tactics. But it is bringing another chariot wing up, which I think should help, I guess. I don't know. I'm worried about this whole wing kind of launching itself against the flank of the Egyptian chariots. The Egyptians have slid up and gotten close and kind of proven that they could have charged forward and hit with some of the runners and taken the hill disadvantage. I think that's what I want it to do. Even though I look at the effects of the... And this is the problem. You're kind of saying, all right, I'll take it on faith and I'll just hit with everything. You look at the combination and there's no advantage there. It's not a great table. I'm going to take more hits than my opponent, but here's the thing. Attacking is the bonus, right? So if you can attack, you force the opponent to take his tactical quality check. But that's not so much the case if they shift forward. Of course, they have to come off the hill to do that. So it's just all this... Wow, it's really hard to absorb whatever thoughts there are on this when you don't really know how to operate a chariot wing. Well, the Egyptians got their momentum chip and tried to trigger the Pharaoh's army, and I don't think they can trigger anything else. Everything else is out of range. They succeeded. I decided to trump in to move my main line. Oh, so I use his initiative and I succeeded there. I just wanted to make sure I'm not supposed to use him. Yeah, and now I can launch that attack safely. And then I'll get an additional momentum chip perhaps. So this could all work out very well for the defenders. Okay, well, the entire Allied right flank swung into position here. These guys kind of took some shots as they passed by the infantry. You don't have to do the run up, fire, and run away tactic, which requires a lot of turning and therefore probably more damage to the chariots than anything else. When somebody's just strung out there on the end like that, you can just shoot them as you walk by them. Not much you can do about it. I also pushed down off the hill. The reason for that is to prevent the Egyptians from getting their advantage by charging. Now they're engaged. If they want to make an attack other than just firing bow fire, both sides have to make a tactical quality check. That seems fair. So now it really is probably going to just be a firing duel with the archers. The only question is, what about this guy here? I couldn't charge him because I had too many units. So then it becomes kind of this, can I swing around and kind of hit something from the side, or what can happen here? I'm not sure. The second momentum, or the momentum chip for the Syrian alliance, didn't trigger anything. I've got a little bit of cleanup to do, but this is really the situation at this point in the battle. You'll notice, perhaps, that this guy here, with his 6 command range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, misses a couple of units. Not too big a deal there. I can't order an attack, but I can't anyway. I can continue to order archery fire there. And that was so that I could bring these guys over here into range of the commander, because these guys could launch and get close to the enemy still. You can't move next. You can't. No, you can't shot. I don't remember what the limitation is. There's something that was can't move next to, but I don't think that's it. If you're out of command, this is the important thing. You can move a missile fire, however, you cannot move adjacent to an enemy unit. You can't use fire and run, and you can't do pass-through attacks. You can't recover or disengage. So, yeah, so these guys are locked in, and they can still shoot the troops they're against, and that's fine. And then these guys, if I want to use them offensively at all, I really needed them to be in command. And well, I'm trying to bring my reinforcements up. I want to win the battle up here before I deal with the Egyptian reserves, basically. And if they stay out of the battle, that's great. If they don't stay out of the battle, I'm in trouble.